Hi there. Today in this video we will see one problem statement of React. Before that, let me show you what this program is actually about. You can see there are 10 records in this table. We have generated dummy records and we have stored the dummy record in this data variable with the useState hook. Now we have used this table layout. In this table layout you can see ID, item, price, and we are doing some operation on this quantity property. At last you can see the total amount of this quantity multiplied by price. You can see we have written a small logic called increment and decrement. This is the logic of decrement and this is the logic of increment. The logic is simple. We are using the previous stored state of that array, and with the help of this index we are modifying the quantity property with +1 for the increment and by -1 for the decrement. Now let's see this program in action. When I try to click on this increment, it actually is not updating the quantity. It should update the quantity by +1, right? But it is not updating, and by decrement it is also not decreasing the quantity. It is just staying as it is. So what the problem here? The logic of increment and decrement is written here. The simple logic is very simple. So you can see for the increment and decrement. Let me show you another example where I can use the similar logic to show you updation. For that, I am adding one variable called counter with the useState and one button where it will do some kind of operation on the onClick method of that button. If I save this page, you can see if I click on this button, you can see that this counter will increment by 1 every time I click on it. You can see it is incrementing when I click on that button. But in this one, it is not incrementing. But as soon as I click on this button, you will see some kind of change on this quantity. See, it actually incremented. Now I click on this button once and I click on this button, then you will see the quantity is going to change by 1 +1. So it will be 2. See. So actually our increment and decrement logic is working perfectly fine. But the problem here is the component is not re-rendering. The issue of re-rendering is happening here. When we click on this button, it is actually working perfectly fine. But when we increment using this, then it is not working fine. You can see it is not working. But when I click on this button, it updates. So where is the problem? The problem lies in the type of the value. You can see here we have created a counter variable with the initial value 0. So 0 is the primitive data type, and this dummy data we have created, it's an array and it is non-primitive data type. Now we have found out the root cause of this problem. Like for the numeric data type, it is working perfectly fine, but for the array, it is not working as expected. So let's see and try to fix the problem. We are using the previous state of the data. By index, we are finding particular element or particular record on which we are doing the increment or decrement operation, and we are modifying the quantity property, and we are returning the updated previous state with the return. So the updated state we will have the modified record. Let's see in the console log. Let's save, opening the console log and see the quantity 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. So the increment operation is kind of working perfectly fine. Okay, so why it is not re-rendering when we click on the increment? The reason is we are updating the previous state of particular item and we are returning that previous state in the next line. So React is not understanding like the data has been updated. I have to re-render the component. For that, we have to create new variable. This is the solution of this problem. Okay, so we are what we are doing, we are creating a new variable, we are assigning previous state data to this new data, and we will use this new data. We will update the new data and return the new data. But in this case, it will also not work as expected. Why? The reason is this assignment. Whenever we assign any kind of data with the equals to sign, and if that data is non-primitive, then this new data and the previous state will always point to the same location. Okay, in this case we have updated the new data of the quantity. Okay, now the solution of this problem is we have to assign completely new data, the new source, to this new data variable. So how we can achieve that? If we have heard about destructuring or know how destructuring works, we can use the similar way. We can use the destructure way here. If we destructure this previous state, the previous array, and assign it to the new data, the completely new array will be assigned to this new variable. Now we can refresh the page and see it's working. So what happened here? How it worked when we use destructure, and why it is not working when we are directly assigning the previous state. When we update the property of any item or any record using the previous state and assign that the modified state as it is, then React won't understand that any kind of record has been updated. This component needs to be re-rendered again. But when we create a new variable with the destructuring and assign that new variable with the new location and return that new data, then React will understand that the location has been changed. So the data might also has been updated. Let me re-render the component. This is how you can solve this problem, this not re-rendering problem. Another solution is, instead of creating this new variable with the destructuring, let's implement another way in the decrement part. In the decrement part, we can update the previous state, and instead of returning the previous state as it is, we can use the destructuring here as well and return the new data with the help of destructure. Now, if you can refresh the page and check, we'll see it is working fine as expected. So this is how you can fix this kind of problem. So always remember, whenever any kind of situation occur where you have to modify any non-primitive data type, make sure you return the new data instead of updating the previous one and returning as it is. Another way to fix this problem, we can create component, and instead of updating the source directly, what will happen whenever we update the new source, whole app component will re-render. But we don't want that, we just want this particular item to be re-rendered. Okay, it will take more memory when whole component tries to re-render. Instead, only that component should be re-rendered, whichever is kind of try to update itself. Okay, so let's create the component. For that, we'll create a folder and we'll create item file. Now let's move this particular loop inside. this item. Let me format the data. Okay, now let's replace. Okay, now let's create a new variable instead of using directly this item. Let's call it row, set row, and with the use state hook, we will try to modify the row. Let's include the dependency. Okay, this text is remaining text. Now let's replace this m with row, and let's update the particular record with this set row. Previous state and quantity like this. This is previous state dot quantity. What we have done, we are updating only that particular item which is getting updated, and with the this return we are modifying only quantity property. The similar way, let's do this for the increment as well with the plus. Let's use that newly created component item key, just to make sure every item is unique, and for item let's pass m. Let's test this program now. See, so this is how you can optimize the program as well. Instead of modifying the whole data source, you can pass that particular record and use the new component and work on that particular row. Use cases might be different for different scenarios. So for this simple program, we can use this solution. I'll see you in the next video.